I'd like to take a minute to mention the tools that we use, because you're working on some rare old beast like this, and you'd really like to have the same thing at the end as what you started with, or hopefully something better than that. And it really detracts from it if you have to destroy the screws getting them out. And if you have some crappy old screwdriver, you're likely to do that. Now, I have these fine German-made Weha screwdrivers, which obviously you wouldn't have to have a German-made Weha screwdriver, but you should have a really good screwdriver that fits the screws very well. Otherwise, you're going to have a strong tendency to ruin the screws, and if you ruin the screws, then you're more or less ruining the toaster, or a percentage thereof. But you get a screwdriver that fits in the slot very tightly, and it's far less likely to cam out. And it's just a lot easier to have something that you can work with rather than something that you have to fight with. After all, you're here to deal with one thing that doesn't work properly. You surely wouldn't want to try to use something else that doesn't work properly to try to fix it. Or at least it doesn't seem like you would. Now, these screws are pretty snug, as you might expect, because they've been in there something like 60 years. They haven't come out yet. They're likely to be there for the long haul. But if your screwdriver fits well, and you hold the screwdriver shank in line with the screw, and you get the slot fully embedded, then you can take out the screws quite safely. Now, that's the 4 screws in the Bakelite, but there's another screw you wouldn't suppose. In this lighter, darker knob, there's a small screw. And you don't want to try to skimp on this. You want a screwdriver that really fits, and this screwdriver really fits, if only just barely so, or at least it did on the last one of these that I tried to deal with. Now, it's twisting right over, for whatever that's worth. And something's wrong with it. There we go, it wasn't in good enough. After all my speaking about getting something that fit, I was using something that fit, but that I hadn't forced in there far enough to actually do the job. Now, once you do that, then this knob comes out. And this Bakelite isn't screwed on anymore. But you'll notice I can support the toaster quite readily by holding on to the Bakelite. So we're going to have to do something a little more severe than that in order to get it off. And we're going to have to pull this crumb tray off. Now, this crumb tray has 2 smaller screws that are down here next to the hinge. And don't worry about these big screws on the body yet. We'll deal with them at the end, as they have their own little problems that come with them. You know, I'm using a magnetized screwdriver, and it's definitely necessary because it pulls the screws out for me. Otherwise, you have a strong tendency to drop the screws, and if you drop the screws, you have a strong tendency not to find them again, and you're not going to go down to the hardware store and pick up a new set of screws for this thing. At least not any hardware store that I'm familiar with. So, that takes off the crumb tray door, and you can now see, unhindered, the new contacts, you think. Not really, they're actually hidden. But we'll get to that next.